Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. We are so glad that you are here for today's research-informed defensive lesson. Every day at Active Self-Protection, we post a real-life use of force caught on camera so that your training and your practice can be more informed. In fact, we're the only channel in the world coming at self-defense encounters from a research-informed perspective. I am your host, John Correa.
And I'm use of force expert, Stephanie Widener.
Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense. This couple who owns this liquor store in Houston, Texas, he goes out to take the trash out at midnight, you can see there, and she is just hanging out. They're Cuban immigrants, actually, and business owners here. They own this liquor store, and she is going to notice that a car pulls up to him. We're going to see it in a minute, and a dude jumps out and threatens him with a gun. So she's going to go back around behind the counter and get the gun that is under the register, and then go and think about, like, what am I going to do here? Am I going to get involved? Then she's going to run around and get involved, and it is going to get real involved once she does. So now we're backing up here. And you see then her husband go, and he's just taking the trash out. You can see again, it's like 12:45 at night. Now, as he does, this car that's going to come from the left here, an unmarked car, this dude jumps out in a plate carrier that says Marshall across it. And he's not a marshal, but it says Marshall. And he tells the guy to put his hands up. So the guy does put his hands up, and he's going to put him on the ground. Now, once he does that, he's going to tell him that that was a lie. I'm not a cop. This is a robbery. That's according to the news stories that I've linked in the description. Go read those. Give me your watch and give me your jewelry, is what he says to the guy. Now, the lady comes out here, chambers her gun, takes a couple shots at the guy. Our dude then gets up, gets his gun out. He was armed as well, and they get at least one shot in this guy, who is then going to do the bear crawl over to the red car. You're going to see him take some more shots at him where she's clinging on to him, and he's going to take a few more shots at them. And then he is going to go kind of walk up. She's not real happy about him walking up, and she's trying to pull him back inside the liquor store here. But instead, our guy, because the car, you're going to watch here, it's still actually in the parking lot. And he's going to pick up the dude's shoes that he left behind. It's, you know, a little trophy pair of Jordans. I about doubt they're actually Jordans. And his gun, and then put them on top of his car. He's got a G-Wagon. Apparently, the liquor store's doing pretty good. And then these guys are going to then drive off. You go read the news story that I've linked in the description. That dude did report himself to the hospital with a couple of gunshot wounds and has been charged with aggravated robbery, with impersonating a federal agent, and with a prohibited person in possession of a firearm. Thankfully, neither of our defenders were harmed in this one. And boy, do we get some lessons out of it. So we go into this in a lot more depth on the Active Self-Protection Extra channel. But Stephanie, as a use of force expert and an expert witness, do most people understand the law of self-defense well?
No, no. And it's a problem. It gets people jammed up all the time. So that's why it's so important to us to teach lessons like that on our other channel, Active Self-Protection Extra, where we can go in depth into those kinds of lessons.
Yeah, so hey, make sure you go over there too. We're going to give you a good dose of it here, but the format's pretty small. So over there, much deeper dive. Holy heck, Stephanie, there are so many lessons on this one. Hey, if you're watching this in the app, make sure you go watch the first watch that we did on this one. We really talk about this stuff in depth in a time that we just don't have as much time here. Make sure that you're watching that. And if you're on YouTube, make sure that you sign up for the Yasp Unlimited app. But I love the fact that they were armed, that he was armed, and that he's the one that went outside to go take the trash out at 12:30 at night. Those are good decisions.
Yeah, we're going to see so much good here and also so much that we can talk about. But I think overall, it's clear that they are serious about self-protection and self-defense. We see the bars on the glass. There are 2 guns available. One person is armed. The second person is not afraid to get the gun. Attitude for days. That is all great. So I love to see all that, and we start out pretty good here.
I agree. Now, In a lot of couples, this is a case. The husband carries, maybe the wife knows about firearms a little bit, and then they keep a firearm kind of somewhere in the house that she can get a hold of, or maybe in her place of business. Okay, and every family has to make that decision. And I would say I would strongly prefer instead that she keep her gun on her person if she's going to be a part of the defensive plan. Now, I get it. That doesn't work for everyone, and I don't want to give her a whole lot of hard time about that here. But I do want to say that going back and going to get the firearm and having all that time really took up a lot of time in this particular instance and made this a lot harder for her, Steph.
For sure. And I think the people are going to question whether or not she'd be able to carry in an outfit like that. I would submit that in a Filster Enigma holster, she could go directly down her shirt, get the gun out and drawn much faster than she was able to get it from behind the counter. And when it came down to it, her husband's life was in her hands, and she shows she has the attitude there to go out and defend him. So let's get her the skills, let's get her the tools and the ability to do so. And that's up to her. That's not up to someone else to do that for her. But she's got the attitude here. I'd love to see her have a gun on her and some training in marksmanship to really limit her liability and problems in something like this.
I really think that there is a theme brewing in this video, and that theme is their attitude is exemplary, and attitude wins so many times. Attitude alone wins so many times. But I really want us all to think about the fact that we want to back up attitude with skills and plan. ASP, attitude, skills, and plan. And that's why the skill set is so important, because, man, there was a lot of inflection moments here where things could have gone really wrong. Chief in there is that you notice here she's gotten the gun from behind the counter, and now she's thinking about chambering it and trying to figure out what to do. She doesn't have a big plan. She's got to formulate that in the moment. And that gun kept by the register is kept unchambered, which is probably wise. But now she's got to figure out how to start that gunfight with a malfunctioning gun, basically, Steph.
Yeah, that is what carrying with an empty chamber is. You've got to clear that malfunction and get the gun in working order before you can even start the fight. And unfortunately, we see where that causes some issues with marksmanship and using the sights as intended when she does get to the door here and try to draw. So ideally, she would have chambered the gun here. But again, carrying it in a proper holster, already chambered and ready to go, would have been much faster than everything that's happening here.
Especially if you know this gun on my person is loaded and I don't have to mess with this stuff. That is really where it's at. Now, let's go out to the outside. Think about our husband here. And I get it, man. It's 12:45 at night. It is Houston, Texas, but this is your everyday life. He is going to then toss the trash. And now we're going to have to spend a second here talking, Steph, because it's so in the news so much. This couple are Cuban immigrants, right? And you see a guy jump out in a plate carrier. It says the word Marshall across his chest, but you can buy those patches on Amazon. And he's pretending to be a police officer. And there's been a lot of that in the kind of Second Amendment community discussions right now about, with ICE raids and those things and unmarked folks. And this guy was marked. And I think it's worth discussing. Of course, if this really was a cop, he's not, all right? So that's not what we're talking about. But if he was a cop and you go, but I thought he wasn't and I shot him, I think that'll hold up in court. But of course, there's going to be 20 more of them right behind you, and your chances of getting shot are really high. But if you reasonably perceive, wait a minute, this guy was in an unmarked car, things are weird, I don't know who he is, and I'm going to jump behind that cover and go shoot this guy, I think you can defend that decision-making process here. And of course, in this case, he's not really a cop. And so that's what I'm more worried about is this criminal ruse to try to gain compliance.
Yeah, and in the app, we went quite in depth talking about multiple examples where bad guys have posed as security, as law enforcement and cops, and been able to kill people that way. We've also talked about examples where cops were off duty, unmarked, and and acting in their role. And so this puts our defender here in a really, really tough position. And but I think also he's already got a gun pointed at him. So when I saw this the first time, I thought, is he making a conscious decision not to draw from the drop here, which I think is really smart. In retrospect, I think he's just frozen up because he thinks it's a law enforcement officer. But I really do think it was wise not to go for his gun right here, whatever his thought process.
Yeah, even if you think it's not a cop, I think this was the right choice because it certainly appears, of course, we can't see because of the pillar, but the guy has the gun up and out and on him. And if you try to draw your gun, he's just going to shoot you, right? So you can't draw from the drop. That's a great way to get shot. So here, purposeful compliance, fine man, whatever you want, and let me do what you need. And is that because he feels like, wait a minute, this guy is a cop and so I have to comply? Or is it because he's got a gun pointed at me and so I need to comply no matter what? I think from a practical perspective, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter which one he is. So this guy is going to go, all right, man, whatever, I'm going to get on the ground. Then the guy says, oh no, wait a minute, I'm not a cop. This is a robbery. Give me your stuff. I will say a couple things here before the lady comes out. This is an advantage here to carrying forward of the hips, that if he was carrying behind the hips here, and we see this on the channel from time to time, Steph, then that bulge would have become fairly apparent on his back or on his side. But the fact of the matter is that it's up front. He's laying on that gun, so by obscurity, he is protecting that gun. Not that there are only advantages to appendix carry, it's got costs too, but this is one of the advantages that I think is worth considering.
Yeah, it really is, because if our bad guy here had seen the gun, you best believe that's the first thing he's going to take. So, and I think we're going to see a real advantage here, and if you are in a partnership where the other person is willing and able to use a gun, where that can certainly be advantageous, because what I love here is there is no expectation that it's his job to defend himself. She's going to come out there and defend her loved one, and she is clearly a high responder and clearly willing to get in and mix it up. And I love that. And she comes barreling right out. Again, we'll talk about some of the challenges and issues there, but I do love that attitude and the fact that, to me, it seems clear that they have talked this through, at least some, and have had a plan and are both willing and able to fight for each other. And I love that.
I love it too. And I feel like if he was solely responsible for the self-defense, man, he's in trouble here. The guy's got a gun screwed in his ears, told him, I'll kill you right now. And so if his wife is not part of his self-defense plan and she can't do anything, man, he's just hoping she doesn't come out. But instead, he knows she's got capabilities, so she does. Now, let's talk about the skill set part of this and the plan part of this, because she comes out and chambers her firearm in order to engage this guy with it. So what does that mean? It means she's standing in the presence of a deadly threat to her husband with an unchambered gun. So she starts her gunfight with a broken gun and has to fix a malfunction in her firearm. Now, that happened because, again, that's how they're staging the gun, but especially if that gun is on your person, that sound of the chambering gun gave our bad guy an advantage and an opportunity to try to get away from the problem. When what he should have had here, Stephanie, is this should have been another instance on the channel of a butthole check.
Yeah, and even more so it's really difficult to tell whose shots landed and whose didn't. I don't see any actual indication of her shots hitting our bad guy. But again, if he doesn't know she's there, it doesn't seem like she's terribly far away, but it is really easy to miss from this far away. And if you don't know that that's a possibility because you're not training and shooting and practicing and know where your distances are at, her loved one that she's trying to save is kind of right there. And so she didn't have to chamber the gun, and she could get another yard or two closer, get even closer to do the most effective butthole check, which is the point blank butthole check. That would have solved this very, very quickly.
The ballistic colonoscopy, as it were, or, as Craig Douglas is famous for saying, you can't tourniquet a taint. And so, again, he gets the opportunity. Now, you notice as well, because of that, because of her chambering of the gun, she slingshots that and just starts sending rounds downrange at this guy. Is she aiming that gun? Well, she's getting a very basic aim, but she's point shooting here, and therefore she's missing. Friends, use the bumpy things on top of the gun. I can't tell you enough. 2 hands on the gun and utilizing your sights is the way to get accurate fire, and misses don't end gunfights. We see this again and again. Now, it did get him moving, so he's got FIBSA, fudge I'm being shot at, but man, we've seen it so many times on the channel, Steph. FIBS is a much better factor than FIBSA.
And I think this is, we say it all the time. We see untrained people effectively defend themselves all the time. But when I see, stills like this with somebody shooting one-handed, we see them both shooting one-handed with some frequency. I think because of the lack of training and just general shooting, they're kind of falling back on what they've seen as examples. And what have we all seen as examples of shooting? So what we see in Hollywood, it's what we see in movies, and that's not effective. So if you don't have some different files to access in your brain besides what you've seen, and you get those files by being out on the range, by practicing, by dry firing, I think you're going to kind of fall back into mimicking what you know. And so I think that's why we're seeing everybody shoot one-handed. And that is, I hate shooting one-handed, guys. It's really hard, so much harder. And especially if you're a woman with weaker arms, weaker upper body strength, it can be a real challenge. If my loved one is downrange, I do not want to be shooting one-handed at all.
At all. I don't want to if I can possibly help it. Now, stop it here briefly as well, because now our bad guy is on the run. So the wife has done exactly what she needs to do and changed the behavior of our bad guy. Now, our husband here is now starting to get up, and I'm going to call this particular spot, Steph, where he started his draw. All right. And we talk about this all the time on the channel. The most important skill to winning a gunfight is a fast and accurate draw to first shot. Now, the unfortunate truth is, because he has to stand up here, because he has to get his gun out, because everything is not ideal, it's going to take him about 3.5 seconds to get his gun out and in the fight. But because the bad guy is moving, because his wife was able to get in the fight, he has 3.5 seconds. Now, would it have been better if he'd have been able to be faster? Sure. But I mean, hey, it worked, right?
Yeah, he's fast enough. He gets this guy before he gets up and completely and turns around and is really at a full run. So yeah, again, luck kind of counts.
Luck does count. I also want to say here, I know some people are going to say, aha, see, you got to practice drawing from really compromised positions. You know what I would actually encourage you to do instead? Practice changing compromised positions into known positions, making the unknown known. So instead of, I'm going to draw from being crouched over like this, just find that spot whenever you're sitting in there. How do I make this into a position where I know my body knows what to do to get a gun out here? And if you'll just practice that, you can practice that in dry practice with a blue gun. You can do that, in a lot of places without the gun in hand, making the unknown known. Then you're back to doing what the thing that you're practiced at, that you are very, very quick at. So that's a little faster way and a little bit more intuitive way to actually gain that to be faster. Now, let's watch him draw here. And again, nothing but praise for this couple for their attitude. Nothing but praise for them for how they handled the problem. He gets the gun out, and now that guy finally starts a fibs, right? So you can see here that as he kind of leans back, that he's finally hit here. I don't have any problems with these shots. Now, you and I might be able to barely see the fact that that gun is down at his feet, but I doubt that our defender here, that the husband, saw that at all. All he knows is this guy just had a gun screwed into my head, and that gun is in his reach, and I need to shoot this guy. So from a legal perspective, I don't have any problems with anything they did in this video, Steph.
No, I think that gun is imminently accessible to the bad guy still. Things can change in tenths of seconds. I don't have any problem. Our good guy shooting here is a bit obscured by this pillar, but I would almost guarantee he's got both hands on the gun for this shot, because that's a fair distance, and he made that shot. That might be instructive, because I see a lot of the one-handed shots that don't have any visible effect. Now, we don't always get a visible effect when someone's shot, but this is the one where we definitely see he was, and I would submit that he has two hands on the gun for this shot.
Certainly looks like he does to me, and they're at the distance of a parking spot. So he's at about 24 feet is where he is. Your average parking spot's about 21 feet long. And so he's at a distance here just past that 23, 24 feet. So that's 7-8 yards. This is a good common distance for real gunfights. Now, let's think about another rule here. I don't know that we've ever stated this rule in these words, but you notice here that she's just panicking and trying to get behind him and get him away from the problem. And I think that is kind of wise, but I want to say the rule here. If I have a gun in my hand, don't touch me. So I just encourage you, if you are a self-defender, you carry a firearm, your spouse doesn't, or even if they do, I would make that rule explicit. If either of us have a gun in hand, don't touch me, because obviously that's really impeding his ability to shoot well here.
I absolutely agree. We'll see that as the video plays. It's also, she has a gun in her hand, which we have no idea where it is anchored. I don't see any significant indications here that they're being thoughtful about where the guns are, or that they're finding anchor points, because it's very easy to lose the gun in space and not exactly know where it's pointing. And she can't, this is just really dangerous. Now, I will say her instinct to get him out of this at this point, that guy is probably crawling into his car at this point. And so I think she's probably right in wanting to disengage and get the heck out of Dodge. That said, it doesn't change the fact that her husband's shooting. So talking these things through would be helpful. I totally agree, John. He's shooting. He's got a gun out. She has to have her hands off. But having some trust for your partner too, and knowing when to disengage is important as well. I think he would do well to listen to her at this point.
And I think she's also trying to keep him from shooting at them as they disengage. And that's correct. Now he goes over, grabs the gun, and grabs the guy's shoes. Now I'm going to say this. If you notice how he's holding that gun, he's holding two guns in his left hand now, his gun and the bad guy's gun. Not great. You can't use either one of those in that case. Now, I don't have a problem with him securing the firearm, Steph. I don't know. Do you?
No, I mean, it might have been a bigger deal if there weren't video evidence or things like that, and you wanted to indicate distances and where people were. But we can see clearly on video what's happening. While the police are likely going to get there very quickly, it's not unusual or stupid or imprudent to secure a loose gun. It's most certainly chambered and a risk to people. So I have zero issue with that here as far as DNA, fingerprints. Absolutely reasonable to see why that is all on the gun. All I'm worried about here is his wife's in front of him. He's watching the bad guy on the other side of the parking lot, not watching muzzle of either. They're not really akimbo, I guess, but I mean, he's got two guns and he doesn't have an eye on either of them. And his wife is downrange. So, you know, again, these are just things to think through, because in the moment, it's all he can think about is the bad guys. And that's reasonable. But we got a lot of deadly threats floating around this parking lot right now, and we need to secure those.
That's my big issue, is the fact that he is still looking at them still in the parking lot. They are still in the parking lot. So I wouldn't be floating around in the middle of nowhere. I'd be behind that pillar looking at them from a position of cover, because, okay, you got his gun, but do they have another one in the car? Is there more opportunity for them to do you deadly harm? Whether you get back in the store or at least behind one of those pillars to hope, and I doubt those pillars are made out of solid concrete. They're probably sheetrock or stucco, underneath the little thin veneer. But still, just getting away from them is probably the smarter answer in this particular case. And I don't love, they're kind of, putting out of the parking lot here. And so he then kind of runs after them a little bit. And I get it, man, the predator drive is so strong, Steph. But again, disengage. Your mission as a private citizen is to escape and break contact with the deadly threat as fast as you can. Now, I do want to say at the end here that, golly, man, I don't want this to look like I think they did a poor job. They won. They did great. They worked together. They got enough accurate hits on target, even though there's probably a bunch of holes in the neighborhood, to end the threat. And that's great. But man, Steph, I think it's still okay for us to say, hey, there were some tactical errors here that we don't want to reinforce, right?
Well, that's why we do these videos, right? Virtual training is, your brain sees that the same way as regular training. It would be imprudent and foolish not to learn what we could learn. None of us is saying we would go into a defensive encounter and not make mistakes. What would be tragic is if you got a video of my defensive encounter and there were lessons to learn and we didn't learn them. Why would we not learn them from the safety of our living room? So like you, John, I saw so many things that this couple did right that I love, and a few more things I would love to see them work on, and that we can all learn to work on. Because how many people, you may have a defensive plan, but do you have a plan for when shooting is over? Do you have a plan for trusting and communicating with each other? Do you know all these things we can now add into our plans to avoid making these same mistakes? We make a few others. None of us are going to do it perfectly, but if we can avoid these and learn from this couple, I think that's really important.
Yeah, one final thing for me here, make sure that you go watch the first watch on this. We take a really deep dive into the discussion of, somebody impersonating a cop, or, in the light of the local news and those things, in the national news of federal agents, in unmarked cars, snatching people up off the streets, those kinds of things. So go there for that discussion, okay? I think there are a lot of lessons here for this one. This couple did a really good job, some tactical things to think about, but hey, they covered their ass.